Gang, did y'all know that it's snowing in South Africa right now?
You are not crazy if you think Bob Barker, Dr. Ruth, or Richard Simmons has died before.
This is the solution to the climate crisis.
Welcome back to the channel. Here we go.
First off, you guys do know the Pentagon has a budget for film. Like, there's a whole department in the
Pentagon. Know that.
That's a fact. There you go. That's all you need to know. There's an entire department in the Pentagon. They get involved with films, and they get involved with films for the purpose of propaganda. They always have.
Hollywood is not really there to entertain you. Like, that's great that happens, but propaganda is something that is important to all civilizations.
It's like, you know, because they're concerned about certain narratives, they get involved with like World War films, like how are we telling a story about history? Usually it's because we're lying.
Pentagon just funded some films, Black Hawk Down, Red Dawn, GoldenEye.
Now you understand your experience in theaters is what your government wants you to think. They want you to think that this is how things happen, and it's usually not at all how things have actually happened.
Criticized me over my house. They didn't pay for it. I paid for it. But let me tell you why. That's water on a duck's back to me. And I'm going to give you a scripture. Be not thou afraid when one is made rich. When the glory of his house is increased. Read that and pull that up in the Amplified. Verse 16 of Psalms chapter 49, if you can do that. Let me read it while she's getting it. Be not thou afraid when one is made rich, when the glory of his house is increased. Read that.
Well, it's Amplified says it, be not afraid when an ungodly one is made rich.
That's true.
When the wealth and glory of his house are increased, and goes on, for when he dies, he will carry nothing away.
Yeah,
his
I understand.
glory will not descend after
See,
him.
God don't care if someone's ungodly to be rich or godly to be rich. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever at all. You see what I'm saying? So when people criticize me, I just say, well, I'm going to occupy till I come.
Now, it's so interesting to see how he reacted when his wife told him it was an ungodly man that verse 16 was referring to. The message here is that no matter how much money you have in this life, none of it matters in death. It says, his glory will not descend after him. The glory of the rich man will not follow him after death.
Here's some good news. You know that company that's being blamed for the worldwide outages, shutting down so many businesses, airlines, trains, and all that? CrowdStrike, right? Well, here's something interesting and positive, and these are not connected at all. Nothing here I'm pointing at is connected. This is absolutely just a coincidence, okay? And I'm going to show you something that happened today, which makes this just a coincidence. These are not related, okay? Because it turns out today this happened, okay? And this happened. So I don't know, it's just a coincidence that these are related, okay? It's not a distraction. This has nothing to do with the global outages across the world. This is not a distraction, okay? And the people that own CrowdStrike, it has nothing to do with any of this, okay? These people, it's all just a giant coincidence. I just want you guys to know that. Okay, so before you guys link these together and say it's a distraction, I'm just letting you know that none of this is related, okay? It's all just a coincidence, okay? So just so you know.
I wish I could tell you guys what's going on right now, but I can tell you it's about to get insane. The reason that all the flights were grounded earlier today, the reason for the huge outages, and the companies in charge of these companies, which are all having outages and having to land at the same exact time. I'll tell you the rest right after this, real quick.
Tonight, as you are well aware, I'm sure, much of the world is grappling with a major computer shutdown. Now, here in Australia, banks, broadcasters, even airports have been affected. That's just to name a few. What the hell? Shops have been unable to take any transactions. The effects have hit simultaneously, not just in Australia, but in the US, Europe, and elsewhere. We're at the forefront of this massive outage.
This is happening at the same time to any country that's in alignment with the US, because earlier today, there were extremely important revelations going around and discoveries being made about things that happened a few days ago. So when all these discoveries started to hit the web,
A huge unfolding story in Australia and right around the world, but we can't bring it to you in the normal way. Why? It's affecting us at Sky News, at Foxtel, many customers, many users, many businesses. What's happened is we believe a malware company called CrowdStrike has essentially gone down.
and remember, this is CrowdStrike. Things are about to get crazier than we have ever seen in the United States. We even have stuff like this. Supreme Court reconsiders case to reinstate Trump. And if you want to know what life-changing revelation and information that just came out, go to the Little Bird.
If I told you I had something right here that would solve all those problems, right here in this little bottle of Doc Willard's Wonder Water, you'd probably say that's the same kind of talk I heard from that snake oil salesman we ran out of town. Well, if you went out to Rapid City, South Dakota, you'd find a lot of folks who swear by something they say will do all those things. The wondrous water of Dr. John Wesley Willard.
What we found was a vat of hot brew being stirred up out back in a truck repair shop. And watching over it was Doc Willard, who is not a wizard, but a professor emeritus of chemistry at the South Dakota School of Mines. Chauncey Taylor used it on a 2nd and 3rd degree burn. Ranchers give it to cattle to keep them healthy. Farmers say it makes wheat grow better. A quail breeder says it helps his birds grow faster and fatter.
People can't comprehend that this could be possible, and they're skeptics. And I suppose I would have been the same way if I hadn't spent the past 10 years of my life living and sleeping with this water.
Little liquid road salt, that's what melts snow and rots your car, and sodium silicate, and magnesium sulfate, and sulfated castor oil. And then Doc Willard mixes some of it with powdered lignite. What you have finally are various mixtures called by different names. LA water, it has nothing to do with that town in California. It means lignite activated water, catalyst activated water, but it's all Willard water, whatever it is.
Well, it's a calcium magnesium polysilicate polymer with a castor oil.
That's chemist talk, and you've already lost me.
All right. It's a catalyst that alters the structure of water, making water behave in a manner that heretofore has not been reported in the literature.
Gas ignited and blowed out a hole and melted my overalls. Had a pair of polyester overalls on, and it melted them and melted my shirt and burnt my leg.
And so you looked down and just saw your leg charred.
Yeah, I looked.
Well, what did you do to treat it?
Well, I had a bottle of this LA water, and I just started squirting it on there and just kept pouring it on. It's fine mist.
And what does it do?
Heals it, I guess.
Chauncey's scab was all gone about 3 weeks after the burn. And 3 months after that, we dropped by to see the final result.
Yeah, it's all healed up.
We wondered whether this unlikely mixture has anything in it that could do anybody any harm.
We took samples to industrial testing laboratories in New York City. Their results were the same as other tests. They found nothing harmful, either in the way of bacteria or metals that could hurt you. But they didn't find much else either. So, what it does, how it does it, if it does it, remains a mystery.
It remains a mystery, even to the chief medical officer of South Dakota's Department of Health, Dr. Robert Hayes.
Use it. I've seen results of what they said it did. I've never had occasion to use it on a patient. I haven't had no more opinion than that, sir.
You've never used it yourself?
No, sir, I haven't.
But on the other hand, you've had no reason to assume it would hurt anybody.
No, I haven't, as a matter of fact. Anything I've heard about it has been nothing bad. It's always been on the positive side.
Your little bottle costs $3 to be mixed with a gallon of water the way most people use it. The biggest commercial distributor of Willard water is Tom Callahan.
Any trouble with regulatory agencies?
Yes, they've stopped the sale of it twice, and I'm sure that we'd have a lot more, except that we have so much public opinion around this area. The governor got hundreds of letters from people that were very irate about stopping this product, and they've more or less kind of let us live ever since.
About the only laboratory work on what Willard water does has been done at the South Dakota School of Mines by Sister Marmion Howe, a professor of biology.
Microorganisms and tested them with Doc Willard's water and without it. And then I used different antibiotics on it to see if Willard's water enhanced the action of the antibiotic.
Does it?
Yes, I found that it did with certain organisms, not all.
The water also seems to sometimes speed up the growth of bacteria, doesn't it?
Yes, we found that out. Some of my students did some work on that.
And it isn't imagination with a calf or a chicken or a quail.
Quail that get the Willard water don't bite and scratch each other the way other quail do. And Jim Dickey, who breeds quail in Rapid City, says they gain more weight on less high-cost feed.
They're plumper, they're a little heavier on Willard water.
It was a better color and it came up quicker and it was a thicker stand and it would yield more. It'd be more bushels per acre.
Helfer then took producer Lowenwater into an untreated wheat field to show him the difference.
This here is the treated wheat, and this is the untreated. And you can just see the difference in the hair roots. That's what feeds the plant. That's what makes it grow, is them little hair roots. The proof is here. You can see it. But what makes the plant do so much better with the water, I just don't know.
At other universities, and they've made the statement, as I have myself. I see it, but I still don't believe it.
Well, where do we stand? We haven't proved anything, and we didn't expect to. But we've met a lot of nice people, and we've found a product that everyone agrees can't hurt you. Maybe that's enough. Besides, anything made with road salt and castor oil can't be all bad.
Creepy things you never knew. Bears in Russia sometimes become so hungry in the summer that they become desperate for food and go to cemeteries to feast on the recently buried corpses. In 1977, we received a radio signal from space. It lasted around 42 seconds. Till this day, we don't know where that signal came from. If you're ever unsure with meeting up with someone and you want to stay safe, use publicdatacheck.com. It allows you to do background checks on anyone, and even has an unknown phone number lookup for those phone numbers that call you that aren't in your contacts. This has saved a lot of people from weird and strange situations. So check out publicdatacheck.com. If your immune system found out you had eyes, it would attack them until you would go blind. In 2002, actor Anthony Starr received a 12-month prison sentence because he had a bar fight in Spain. Witnesses say he drunkenly punched and smashed a bottle on a chef's head, saying to him, "You committed the mistake of your life. I'm going to look for you. I want to you." He managed to avoid jail time by paying the victim $4,000. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, let me tell you a secret. Typing "scream" all lowercase with the bars around it like this will give you a secret emoji down below. Let's see who can actually do it.
Oh boy, voice to skull technology. This is also in the foray of directed energy weapons. The ability to, let's just say, throw your voice into your head, or my voice into my head, or allowing algorithms that now they can blanket a whole geographical area and they can make everybody change their thoughts. If you find yourself where you have to make a decision about something, next thing you know, you catch yourself kind of having an argument in your head with your own voices. Well, the ability to add another one of your voices in there, but have it controlled by somebody else's microphone, so to say, is a very powerful tool. And I think this is a weapon of war. The Department of Defense recently started initiating protocols for their employees, their agents, to discuss Havana syndrome-like symptoms. And on that list is that their agents are hearing voices in their head, and this is what they're getting at. This is that technology. Next thing you know, you're trying to make a decision, but there's another Sean in your head that now is actually somebody else's control, and through the manipulation of that voice, they can push you in a direction by repetitive information being displayed in front of you, that they can learn your system and they can learn to manipulate it on a personalized level.
What made the dinosaurs go extinct? Do you realize they're asking the wrong question? The question is not what made them go extinct. The question is, did they go extinct? Now, they didn't call them dinosaur, though. They called them dragon. See, the word dinosaur wasn't made up till 1841. So for most of human history, these creatures are called dragons. Did you know dinosaurs not even in the dictionary in 1891? For most of human history, they were known as dragons. Now, dragons are mentioned in the Bible 34 times.
How are more people not talking about what is happening in Bangladesh right now? Because it is actually wild. So this week, massive protests erupted across the country. So in response, not only has the entire population been placed under a curfew enforced by the military, but the government also ordered the closure of all universities and have completely shut down the internet and all mobile services to try and stop the unrest. I mean, can you just imagine if your government shut down your internet? That's a country of over 170 million people now cut off from the world. That's wild. And it's literally turning into something you'd see in a movie because now they've stormed a prison and broken hundreds of people out. The government is being hacked by a group called The Resistance. And on the official website of the Prime Minister, it currently reads, "Stop killing students. It's not a protest anymore. It's a war now." What they're referencing is the 105 people so far killed in these protests according to an AFP count. So you're probably wondering, what has caused all of this? Well, Bangladesh have a job system in which more than half of government jobs are reserved for specific groups. And out of the total, only 44% of them you can actually get hired for based on merit. And when you have a country where over 40% of the youth are neither working or in university, jobs really matter. Some students want this job system abolished, while others want it to remain, which is why things have turned so violent and words like civil war are floating around now. But the only reason I even found out that this was going on was because hundreds of you guys messaged me. And it's just crazy that things like this can happen in the world and you can just go unaware.
The International Space Station has taken an unexpected turn. The astronauts doing the spacewalks will now be wearing snorkels after the last astronaut who performed a spacewalk nearly drowned when his helmet filled with water. Let's get to...
But just my gut inside me said, that's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy. That's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy.
But the last spacewalk ended with Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano nearly drowning in his helmet after it started filling with water.
Water is in his eyes now, and it seems to be increasing.
Fellow astronauts quickly pulled him back into the station. When they did, water poured from the helmet.
And just out of the airlock right now, and I'll get in config to get the waste feathers all hooked up, the safety feathers, I should say. Okay.
Dave Williams beginning the third spacewalk of his career.
We saw some droplets coming out, and I'm looking at you from camera, Charlie.
Okay.
And I saw them go up towards your feet.
Okay, I don't see anything.
Bubbles in Space starts today at theaters everywhere.
Marco!
Gang, did y'all know that it's snowing in South Africa right now? Now I know that I'm not tripping, but I have never seen it snow in South Africa. The animals ain't ever seen it snow in South Africa. And now we all wondering, why did Elsa and Jack Frost decide to squeeze their asslows together and drop a booty nuke on South Africa? Y'all remember the climate change that everybody was talking about? Yeah. I think that we're seeing it happen right before our eyes. Because places like Antarctica, where it's supposed to be colder than polar bear titties, is now getting warm. And places like Africa, where it's supposed to feel like a slapboxer tournament in Texas, it's now snowing. But now we're seeing a global change happen all across the world. For the people that thought I was capping about flowers blooming in Antarctica, huzzah! This is just, delightful. Y'all let me know your thoughts on what y'all think about it snowing in South Africa in the comments. Like and follow for more wisdom and stay tuned. Remember, if y'all want the sauce on how to blow up on social media, comment down below ATM. I just got the chills.
Watch this video before it gets removed. This is confidential information from my ebook. So we all know that the Illuminati began in 17th century, but the harsh reality is that their history has been way back before then. Have a look at the pyramid. This leads us to know that there are a total of 13 bloodlines of Illuminati. People think that Astor, Bundy, Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee, Onassis, Reynolds, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Russell, and Van Dyne are the 13 bloodlines, while the reality is that they are not. The real bloodlines are Borgia, Farnese, Colonna, Breakspear, Orsini, Medici, Conti, Aldobrandini, Chigi, Smaglia, Gaetani, Este, and Pamphili. I know most of you are shocked right now because you have never heard of these names before. And even if you Google them, you will find limited knowledge to zero knowledge.
I could make a sperm out of your skin cells and an egg and fertilize that. So you can clone me? I could clone you. I won't do that because it's illegal, but biologically we could do that. I can make organs, mini organs from you and test drugs. What we're doing in the lab is we have... Yeah. Personalized medicine. When you come to my lab and you have to promise you're going to come, I'll show you we grow these mini brains in the lab. And we've got them from people that are predisposed to Alzheimer's or not. And we have a way to age those brains so that they're now 80 years old, even though they're only a few months old. And they lose their ability to fire electrically. They become demented in the dish, little mini brains. On Instagram, I've shown some photos of these. They're pretty cute. And so we give them Alzheimer's and dementia in the dish. And then what we do is we have the system to turn on those 3 embryonic genes, OS and K, and those brains go back in age. But here's the cool thing. Alzheimer's goes away, that electrical activity comes back. Now we do this in a mouse. We make the mouse older, just let them age out, or we accelerate it, and we've been now reversing the age of those brains in the mice, and you can guess what happens. They get their memory ability to learn back.
Unbelievable. Do you hear what you're saying?
Y'all, I cannot believe all the stuff I woke up today. Israel has just started the biggest conflict that you are ever going to see probably in your lifetime. They literally bombed up and down western Yemen, bombing main ports, arms depots, all sorts of stuff. I told you I woke up to crazy things, including a serpent-like sea monster. Literally, look at this. Watch the tail bend. That's insane. That's insane. The animals had been telling us that the world is not normal. The whales, the sharks, everything. This is going to rapidly bring Iran full force towards Israel as well as the Houthis. I believe this right here is the arms warehouse. And all this just in time for November. Guess what else has to do with November? Allegedly, the word is that Hillary Clinton is going to be running against Trump for this election. Hillary. And what happened a few days ago is nothing like you think. Like I said, go to the Little Bird to find out details about that situation. Now back to the Middle East. First off, Israel is saying it did it by itself and had no help. Anyways, and now the Houthis are saying it's all direct conflict, if you get what I'm saying. I literally just said yesterday on Facebook Live, going over the outages and the plane landing and the scenario 3 days ago, that something was going to happen in the Middle East. But you can go to Facebook and find out. Like, for some reason, at that rally, there was the best of best. And later, we're going to talk about the 1811 parallel I was telling you guys about in March. Because the clock is still ticking.
I've been keeping tabs on a New Age religious group in Texas called Profundity Yours, and I believe there's reason to be concerned. It's not that I think all the middle-aged members in matching uniforms are dangerous. They seem pretty tame. I'm not too concerned about the nonsense language they speak. It's not concerning to me that the leader claims to be an alien deity either.
And you know, alien is a really derogatory word for us. We're extraterrestrials.
What concerns me is that the folks who wind up in Profundity Yours are generally vulnerable adults who believe Linda has the expertise to heal their trauma.
Because I used to be a licensed psychologist.
Linda was never a licensed psychologist. She's more like a psychopath.
I am in no way comfortable being human. Humans don't understand me. They don't understand my intelligence. To have a normal conversation and just a friendship with somebody is the most challenging aspect for me being in a human body.
For someone like Linda, it's very easy to exploit the people who come to her seeking help. And to control them, what she does is convinces them to cut off all contact with their loved ones, people who might have questions about this stuff.
And in many cases, maybe we've lost touch with friends and family.
Yeah. Not being able to see my parents. Or like, I really don't know if I can say not being able, or I really don't want to do it.
That's what cults do. This is a cult. Linda's a cult leader. This is slavery with the illusion of choice.
For those of you that are not aware, there's a group of people that have been spreading that the Profundity Yours team is a cult and that I am brainwashing people.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to talk about today for the most part are your rights, especially when it comes to things like public service and servant encounters involving traffic stops, sidewalk stops, public building stops, so on and so forth. It would surprise you to a great degree just how much the American people are no longer in touch with what their basic, common, unalienable rights actually are. We've been indoctrinated into surrendering them to the state and to those that we judge to be in authority over us for far too long. It's probably one of the biggest reasons for government-controlled schools is simply because this indoctrination process has to be done slowly, because what they're telling us about what we have as far as rights are concerned and how they actually treat us in regard to those rights are very much in contrast and in contradiction to each other. But by doing it slowly over time, the way they're doing it, most people have gotten to the point where they don't even notice any longer that they have been deprived of those rights until it's far too late. This is the transportation script that I wrote and am currently recommending for use whenever you're engaged in any type of public interaction.
You are not crazy if you think Bob Barker, Dr. Ruth, or Richard Simmons has died before. I thought that this weekend. I was going crazy. I just did a post, and there are so many people that have the same reality, that there's so many people that have the same version of timeline. Here's my question. Is CERN doing something? Did we jump timelines? Or did what happened this weekend cause us to jump timelines? Are we doing it ourselves? That's another question. Like, there are so many people just in the comments, look at my last video, so many people have just had the same kind of memories, and that is too similar. This isn't a coincidence. So are we jumping the timelines ourselves because it was tragic? And like, you know, like when something happens tragically in your life and you can block it out, are we jumping this timeline ourselves? Or was this a CERN thing? Did they fire this up? Or are they doing something to us? All I know is there's a lot of us and we're here, and it's just like, why? Or are we here for a purpose? How did we get here? All I know is that every time that I respond to a comment, everybody feels passionate about what they remember. And it's like, and this happened this weekend. We all saw it and we all knew it. Something was off. Something was off. But now we're here, and like, are we here to do something? Or are we here to communicate to each other? I don't know, but I like the conversation.
Hey, if you're still here, please do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button so this video gets recommended to other people. Thanks.
Do you remember when a few folks started suggesting that maybe, just maybe, someone was tampering with the weather? And of course they were laughed at, they were mocked, marginalised, fact-checked by the mainstream media. Now that same mainstream media later, very quietly, admitted that yeah, alright, they do that after major flooding killed 20 people in Dubai. But geoengineering didn't cause this one, honest. Well, geoengineering was a conspiracy theory 20 minutes ago, so forgive me if I don't believe ya. And do you remember when people started suggesting that maybe Joe Biden wasn't quite the full meal ticket cognitively, and perhaps his lad Hunter is a bit of a wrong-un? They had their social media accounts deleted, they had their posts suppressed. US media jab pusher darling Jimmy Kimmel labelled the idea of Joe Biden's clear mental decline as a crazy conspiracy theory. The story of Hunter Biden's laptop, drug use and gun crimes had the New York Post Twitter account suspended, and Mark Zuckerberg openly admitted blocking the story on Facebook. But Biden's mental frailty is now common knowledge. It's discussed. And Hunter Biden has been convicted in a federal court. And remember the days following the October 7th attack in Israel, where people, some Israeli border guards themselves, started questioning the border security and the ignored warnings, the lack of response by the military. They questioned whether maybe there's more to know about what happened on that day. They got called conspiracy theorists, anti-Semites, Hamas apologists, and yet now, 9 months later, the Jerusalem Post has published documents proving the IDF was warned of the attack, not only by Egypt and the US, but by their own military intelligence almost 3 weeks before. And instead of bolstering the presence at the border, they moved units away, leaving the border virtually unguarded. Now, some people went further. Brave people, because we all know calling out Israel is a bad career move, they suggested that given the scorched remains of the vehicles and the buildings in the Israeli villages nearest to Gaza, that perhaps the IDF had implemented something called the Hannibal Directive on October 7th. The Hannibal Directive is essentially an order to kill your own, rather than allow them to be captured and taken as hostages. Now, you can imagine the reaction to anyone that suggested Israel killed their own people on October the 7th. It wasn't pretty. All the usual name calling ensued. And yet here we are again in July 2024. And Haaretz, a mainstream media outlet in Israel, have revealed that their investigation has shown that the Hannibal Directive was indeed used that day. And remember, in 2020 and 2021, when the dangerous granny-killing COVID idiots took to the streets to protest against COVID tyranny, against the lockdowns that destroyed so much and so many, they shouted from the rooftops about the dangers of the COVID vaccines. They were called anti-vaxxers and extremists. They were sacked from their jobs for refusing to take a shot that could kill them. And again, here we are in 2024 with countless dead and injured as a result of those safe and effective injections. It's now common knowledge that the experts were wrong after all. Mainstream media bubbleheads like Piers Morgan quickly backtracked. They claimed, of course, that the science had changed. Science didn't change, mate. And the experts weren't wrong, actually. They lied. And that's not the same. Being wrong and lying are not the same thing. One requires an apology. The other requires a prison cell until they breathe their last breath. Now, these few examples are just a handful from the last few years. Dangerous conspiracy theories that were, well, anything but. So what about the few years before that? What else from our history was a lie? What other narratives do you parrot? Because everyone knows that. We learnt it in school. Did ya? Did you learn it? Or were you simply told it by someone else that was told it by someone else that was told it by someone they probably can't even remember? And that's why it's so important to question everything and everyone, because these events from the last few years that I've exampled, they don't stop here. There'll be more of them. And now we have an authoritarian in government in the UK. It's even more important to not only question the official story, but to shout those questions from the rooftops to anyone that will listen. Because some may think that Labour can't be any worse than the Tories, but aside from the fact their leader is in the pocket of the Trilateral Commission, the Israel lobby, and his chief advisor founded a censorship organisation, Starmer himself is not without his own fascistic receipts. Throughout COVID, as livelihoods were being destroyed, suicides were going through the roof, children were being mentally destroyed, he wanted to lock down even harder and even faster. He said he would work with the then Prime Minister to push through legislation to silence people that were exposing vaccine dangers and vaccine harms, dangers and harms that are very real. And learning of them before the appointment at the vaccine clinic would have saved people's lives. And it's worth harking back to October 2019 and Event 201, if you remember that, a simulation of a coronavirus pandemic that came out of China. They spoke about the need for censorship of conspiracy theories and mass vaccinations. And as if by magic, 6 weeks later, we were given the story of a wet market in Wuhan. The reason it's worth harking back to that is because in October this year, there's an avian flu summit in Washington, D.C. So it might be time to dust off your tinfoil hat, folks.
This whole computer crash is getting pretty wild, ain't it? But what if I told you that this whole thing is just a part of the corrupt house of cards falling down? It's just not easy to see. I'll do my best to show you what's going on, but it's for entertainment value, of course, because I know absolutely nothing, and I'm just making this stuff up. All right, by now, everybody knows that the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike is the reason for this outage. All right, now there's two parts to this video. The first one, CrowdStrike has two major shareholders, one being BlackRock. And it's funny how BlackRock is in the news recently. And the second biggest shareholder of CrowdStrike, Vanguard. Now this article, I need you to keep in mind, CrowdStrike is known as a partner to the WEF. It's going to be important to remember. See, the founder of CrowdStrike has been doing a lot of activity in the past few years in a certain area. This guy here, George Kurtz, and that's the area. Now, he's been taking his company through the Big Is and buying up different cybersecurity companies in the area. Here's another one for $2 billion. Now, the Big Is has been known for years for their technology. I mean, one of the major GPS companies that's used here in the US is controlled by the Big Is. But their biggest claim to fame? Cybersecurity. Oh, and side note, I hope all you cryptocurrency people are paying attention. But anyway, not only does this guy's company own most of the cybersecurity around the Big Is, but also a partner to the WEF, as well as owned by Vanguard and BlackRock. And how is all that relevant to the
outages that we're having? Well, it's funny that the same day that the outages happened, a certain decision came out about the Big Is. And I personally find it funny that all these elites leave breadcrumbs to show us they knew exactly what was going to happen. All a bunch of tangled branches to the same tree. Y'all stay safe.
No one controls you, and no one controls me. However, you're right. The country has been invaded. We are under a foreign invasion, and it's important people understand this. So let's talk a little bit of history. It wasn't until we pulled back the curtain on the wizard and saw him react that we got to go a deeper dive. And in fact, at that time, I really had to pull back because I had to learn more. We had to learn more about common law and trust law. So imagine you have 3 law forms and they've only taught us 1 to keep us stupid. They taught us maritime. So all of the courts right now in America are maritime. They're administrative tribunals. They're actually trafficking you in every single court case. They're opening bonds in your name. They are money changers. Okay, so let's talk basic history. I'm gonna go fast on this. 1776, we signed our Declaration of Independence, but only 7 years after that, that's when the deep state came in and they formed the District of Columbia right next door, because every time you run in a republic, bring in God's kingdom, the devil has to roll in a counterfeit to confuse the people, because a republic to the deep state is a very big threat. And I'll talk about
they do that on at micro levels too. Anytime we have this is big, but the Great Awakening, they turned it into the woke movement. They steal and they make it theirs, and then they prepackage it and give it to the people.
Because they know we live in a consciousness reality, and so long as they can take our attention, they can take our freedom. So long as they can give us benefits and get us locked into a system that we're dependent on, they can take our freedom.
You can use radium to test if a diamond is real. This is great. They were growing lab-grown diamonds in 1902. Everything was being made in the lab. So you know this whole lab-grown meat situation? Guess what? That's all from 1902. That was already being done. Just like diamonds were being grown in a lab in 1902. Then they make you pay a premium for them when they could just grow them. They can also transmute certain materials to create diamonds for free. This book holds a lot of gems, that's for sure, 1902. So then they exposed larvae to radium, and they noticed that they actually lived 3 times the lifespan, according to his fellows, and still showed no signs of changing into a moth. So what they were showing was the radium was connecting to the fountain of youth. It was allowing insects to live 3 times as long as they normally would. If you think about it, radium begins to be the fountain of youth, and that's another reason we were told about, the radium girls and girls licking paint, which makes absolutely no sense, for 13 hours a day licking paint and whatever else, putting chemicals into the body, but not talking about the fountain of youth with radium.
I definitely know a lot of people will be watching this video and going like, it's fake, this is fake, this isn't, why hasn't this advanced, why haven't you, why this still pouring the strain, why this still, why, chill. This video reminded me why I started doing what I do in the first place. This is science beyond the science, As you can see, the fire's on the other side. The pot is on the other side, and it's still boiling. Listen, we're taking our science somewhere that you never dreamt it was going to go. Keep following Mikra. You understand what I mean? I'll see you soon.
Dude. Oh my God.
Fiquei no pé do arco-íris. Que tá o dinheiro? Vou atrás do pé do bicho.
I'm puzzled. Are you really seriously suggesting that Jesus Christ was a mushroom?
Put pretty blankly, yes.
Surely you don't suggest that Jesus Christ and his various disciples were not human creatures.
Yes. You are dealing with a secret cult, a secret society. The stories of the New Testament contain certain incantations, certain magic names, which were really the names of mushrooms.
No, but the writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, these men who wrote the story, you are telling me they did not exist?
No.
None of them existed?
It's part of mythology. It's part of mushroom mythology.
Tuna! I can tell you why there's a lot of shark attacks and odd marine activity. 500,000 marine mammals that are estimated to be impacted.
Seismic surveying uses compressed air released into the water.
Companies need to submit information before they begin this. They need to get permission. NOAA's website. Okay, I'm going to scroll. You're going to see the applicant name. Okay, now watch. I'm going to scroll down so you can see how many that there are. And during this period where they're doing these seismic surveying, look at how many of them overlap. There are over 500,000 marine mammals that are estimated to be impacted just by these 6 surveys. The largest impacted group are bottlenose dolphins with 426,168 affected. There's level A harassment, which involves potential injury to marine mammals. This can include permanent hearing loss, physical injuries, or other severe effects. Or level B harassment involves disturbance without injury, typically includes behavioral changes, such as altered migration patterns, communication interference, or displacement from critical habitats. Taking also includes injury and mortality. This is so obvious.
I agree, and I also might be able to shed some light. Aside from seismic testing, which leads to acoustic trauma in whales, and I experienced this myself in 2023 when a loudspeaker went off and I got an ear concussion. It was agony. So I can only imagine the whales and their perforated, bleeding eardrums at 250 decibels pulsing in 10-second increments for months at a time. Well, there's another thing that I happened upon in my fascination with all things frequencies like ham radio, and that is underwater sonar. And this led me to deep sea mining, and what I unearthed was nothing less than horrific. Deep sea mining that is dredging the bottom of our ocean floors is absolutely a logical reason why we're seeing these fish like the anglerfish that are supposed to be 3,000 feet deep in the ocean washing up on a shore thousands of miles away. Things like diamond mining are dredging up 60 tons per hour of ocean bed that has been there for millions of years. Because of my channel, I have people write to me from all over the world with their concerns. Someone has written to me who works on one of these ships, and they have said to me that although environmental agencies might say that only the minerals and diamonds are harvested and all of the living creatures are thrown back in, this person told me there are no living creatures, and those that are alive when they are brought up with deep sea minerals don't remain living. This has been incredibly on my mind, and I felt like I'm just this one little voice on TikTok with this very big concern. So imagine how I felt when I wake up this morning to see that last night a mainstream celebrity has covered this exact topic. I'm gonna let comedian, anchorman John Oliver take over, but first, let's have a look at some of the incredible creatures we've found on our mysterious dark seabed.
But we're going to talk about a specific part of the Pacific Ocean tonight called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, or the CCZ. It's an area between Mexico and Hawaii that's nearly the size of Europe.
When we go out and collect a sample on the seafloor, we collect hundreds of new species.
He told us he was surprised at how much life could survive 3 miles deep.
A study last year found there may be more than 8,000 species living in the CCZ, and of the 5,500 so far detected, only 438 have been identified.
So much undiscovered, but one thing we know is down there are highly valuable nodules that contain cobalt, which is one of the ingredients in our sustainable EV batteries.
Form of potato-shaped nodules, little lumpy spheres formed over millions of years. Basically a nucleus, like a little bit of bone or sand, slowly accrued a build-up of metals at a rate of around 1 millimeter every million years or so. Those nodules now line some parts of the deep ocean floor and contain valuable metals like nickel and cobalt, which can be used for things like batteries for electric cars. So obviously, people are very interested in getting their hands on them.
Is this the gold or oil of the 21st century?
I definitely think that these black nuggets are going to be an essential part of our ability to transition to what we want to do at the end of the day.
Deep sea mining companies are now scrambling to get their hands on what they love to describe as a battery in a rock. And the head of one company leading the charge, the metals company.
I love the fact that they're the way we're going to get away from fossil fuels. I love the fact that in these are all the metals we need to go and build those batteries. I mean, it's the most amazing coincidence that I've ever encountered. Mother Nature made these nodules. They're just sitting there. It's like, okay, you guys, you've messed up planet Earth. Come and get me.
So let me get this straight. Mother Nature left these magical nodules to save us all, and she left them 15,000 feet deep in the ocean. Bed. Okay. Let's move on.
That man is named Gerard Barron, and he's positioned himself at the forefront of this industry and reportedly once hired a marketing firm to portray him as an Australian Elon Musk. His company says it secured access to enough metal to power 280 million electric vehicles, equivalent to the entire fleet of cars in the US. And he's projecting they can start commercially exploiting the deep sea as early as 2026. The place he's planning to do that is the CCZ. Extracting those nodules could do irreparable damage.
They literally lie on the ocean floor, just like this, like golf balls. The golf driving range.
That sounds easy until you remember they're 15,000 feet underwater. Vehicle delicately sucking them up like a vacuum cleaner. The researchers estimate at least 30 to 40% of species down there live directly on the nodules themselves.
This is its own little habitat. We get millions of different species living on these nodules, everything from microbes, some of which live nowhere else other than on and in these nodules, all the way to much larger animals. And that means that if the nodules were to be removed, they would certainly impact these species and potentially lead to long-lasting, if not irreversible, impacts to this ecosystem.
But during this process, it will also collect about 5 to 30 centimeters of sediment from the sea floor, and that will create a sediment plume. The unwanted sediment and seawater from the cleaning process will be released back into the ocean. And that could either happen close to the sea floor or at much shallower depths closer to the surface. And that creates a secondary plume, but this time likely containing fragments of metal.
Two massive clouds of sediment and metal, which can do a lot more damage than you might think. They have the potential to bury fields of nodules, choke the filters of sponges and anemones, even those living outside the mining zone, and obscure bioluminescence that squid and fish use to hunt and mate. And while the metals company says research it commissioned shows the damage will be minimal, vastly more research that it didn't commission suggests otherwise. One long-running study sent equipment down to simulate the extraction of nodules in 1989 and returned periodically to see how the ecosystem had changed. And even 26 years later,
it had failed to return to its previous state. Ocean organisms can lead to radical advances in medicine. In the last 50 years, scientists have discovered more than 10,000 new chemical compounds from sponges. In fact, a number of drugs, from the world's first medication to treat HIV, to a drug for breast cancer, to the COVID treatment remdesivir, owe their origins to sea sponges. And many more, including many derived from deep-sea creatures, are in the works.
So things that can potentially save our lives could be found in these precious, fragile ecosystems.
It's worth noting that the ocean actually absorbs about a third of all the carbon dioxide we produce. So if deep-sea mining could be this risky, what rules are in place to mitigate it? Well, unfortunately, in most of the ocean, none. And to understand why, you need to know a little bit about a tiny UN-affiliated agency called the International Seabed Authority, or the ISA. It's in charge of the seabed in international waters and oversees an area covering around 54% of the total area of the world's oceans. The ISA calls it the area.
That sounds very specific and scientific and organised.
That more than 80% of the world's oceans remain unexplored and unmapped, and there is still so much that we don't know about how mining could affect it. But many of the agency's critics are also concerned that it's beholden to mining interests, with one of its top rulemaking bodies having members who also work for mining contractors.
Anyone heard the term conflict of interest?
It hasn't given out any exploitation licenses to actually commercially mine the ocean floor yet, but it's given out dozens of so-called exploratory licenses, which are the first step toward doing that.
The ISA's job is to decide which parts of the sea floor in international waters can be mined by which country. But some have asked whether it's paying enough attention to the environmental consequences.
Have you ever, in the ISA's history, rejected a licence application?
No, so far no licence application has been rejected.
It's good to know the bar's set high with who they're going to let dig up our ocean beds and all those millions of years old ecosystems.
But as also said, I think that deep seabed mining is an essential component of the global vision for a sustainable world. Isn't a scientist but a lawyer, has made it clear in interviews that he is irritated by environmentalists who want clean energy but who also oppose deep-sea mining, arguing to say don't harm the ocean, it is the easiest message in the world, right? You just have to show a photo of a turtle with a straw in its nose.
Yeah, I would probably stop what I'm doing if I found a turtle with a straw in its nose.
One marine geologist who served as its top environmental official has said the ISA is not fit to regulate any activity in international waters. It is like to ask the wolf to take care of the sheep.
It does indeed sound exactly like that, except in this situation, the sheep is an entire ecosphere of marine life with thousands of creatures that we don't even yet know about.
The way it works is when larger countries find worthy locations to mine in, they have to hand over half that territory to the ISA, which then sets them aside as reserved areas for developing countries to start their own projects. Those countries can then sponsor a mining company to develop that area for them. That is what happened with Barron's Company, which has been sponsored by a few tiny Pacific Island nations, among them Tonga and Nauru, on what appear to be very favourable terms. One Tonga community leader has said it's accepting a fee that amounts to less than 1% of the firm's total estimated value of the mined material. And Barron seems very aware of how much leverage his company has, saying if you look at a nation like Nauru and if you ask them, well, what are your other economic development opportunities, there's not a long list.
So just to be even more of a great guy, Barron is going to take advantage of an impoverished, decimated country.
And Nauru is now clearing a path for the metals company to start mining.
I mean, it is quite sci-fi, and if this were a film, you know, I'm sorry to say, you'd probably be the bad guy.
I think it depends if you're a glass half full or a glass half empty person. Personally, I'm a glass half full, and I think this is the solution to the climate crisis.
Is it though?
Barron will say that it is, arguing that it is better than the alternative, mining on land, which can indeed do incredible damage. If these nodules really could provide unlimited energy for billions of people, I'd say maybe it's worth thinking about. But the truth is, they may not be as critical for our clean energy future as Barron insists, because while it is true that the metals inside them are a key component of batteries now, Lithium-ion batteries are fast being replaced by new battery chemistries that don't require cobalt or nickel.
Lithium batteries need precious materials like cobalt and nickel to work, but sodium doesn't. It's found everywhere. It's simply salt. The world's largest battery manufacturer, Chinese CATL, already went big on sodium-ion technology in 2021.
Meanwhile, more and more countries are calling for a precautionary pause or moratorium on deep-sea mining, and I would argue that the US should join them.
I couldn't agree more. And if you feel like me, which is very powerless and helpless and very, very deeply saddened of what I'm seeing happen to our sea life, we have elections coming up here in the US. Maybe we should call our local government representatives and find out where they stand on these green topics. EV battery development, unchecked deep sea mining, seismic testing. Maybe the thing that we're told is good for the planet isn't actually that good for the planet after all. So before you check that important box for our next leader of the free world, maybe see who might have these guys' backs. Take care.
This is fact. This is fact. And I want you to share this to all your loved ones. I want you to hit the share button right now and share it to people that you think that won't believe me even, but to make sure they have this as a reference. When your cards stop working, not if, when your cards stop working, count your days, motherfucker. Count your days. You have 72 hours, 3 days. And this is for the people that live near major cities. Get the fuck out of that area. Just in case. Maybe it'll breeze over. But do you have the luxuries of playing it by chance? Do you? 3 days. Get your ass to a relative that's out in the country. Get in some woods with a long road with a 22, not hand, rifle. And defend your scraps. I would start procuring items while you can. But hey, this is fear-mongering. Fear. 72 hours. You have 72 hours. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'm not gonna... You can fill in the blank all you want, but do your research. Do some actual critical thinking. If all the cars go down, and you're near a heavily populated area, what the fuck do you think's gonna happen? People gotta eat. People gotta drink. People gotta live. You wanna see what a zombie apocalypse looks like? You'll be in it. Peace to God.
Well, a license by definition is a permission to do something that is illegal, unlawful, a tort, or trespass. So when you got your marriage license, ladies and gentlemen, you wanted to create a tort or a trespass. You wanted to violate a law. You wanted to trespass on somebody's rights. And the state licensed you to do that, and you paid them a fee. And you created the guardian-ward relationship in which the state is the superior guardian, and you become an officer of the court. In several states, statutes authorize a person who, although of sound mind, when he believes that he's incapable of managing his own estate or of caring for his own property, he may apply for, or he may request, or simply consent to the appointment of a conservator or a guardian of his estate, or of his estate and his person, who, when appointed, possesses over the estate substantially the same powers, and is subject in regard thereto to substantially the same duties as the guardian of an incompetent.
For absolutely no reason at all, nothing special, I just want to show you guys these micro machines that they are making, which can take hold of single molecules, single cells. By the way, notice this number 10 UM. That's 10 micrometers. I'll show you just how small it is in 1 second. But look at all these different contraptions they have. Sorry, it's blurry right there, it's not my fault. I mean, these machines are just slightly bigger than the cell itself. Wonder what this could be used for. Here are hairs, and this hair right here is about 30 micrometers, so this contraption was 1/3 the size, the thickness of one piece of hair. And the AI says they're made out of almost anything organic and non-organic material. Yeah, again, no reason for it, just saying, you know, just...
Alright, that's it for today's session. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks again for showing up, everyone, and I will see you around.